are a big man now. You have everything. So why are you still bothering us? We are just hawkers. We don't belong in your world.
I saw her, the woman I abandoned 8 years ago. And beside her were my hidden twins.
Yo, you are a big man now. You have everything. So leave us alone.
They call me the Lion of Banana Island. A billionaire with the world at my feet. But today...
On this particular Friday, the sun was unforgiving. It was that kind of Lagos heat that feels like it's coming from inside your own skin. Inside his custom-built SUV, Solomon was enjoying the best of Japanese engineering. The air conditioning was so cold that he could almost see his own breath, and the leather seats felt like a cloud. Solomon was a man who had forgotten what sweat smelled like. To the rest of Nigeria, he was the Lion of Banana Island, a billionaire who had turned a small construction firm into a global empire. But as he sat there, tapping his fingers on his gold watch, he was just another frustrated commuter stuck in the legendary Lagos traffic. Lagos traffic is not for the weak. His driver, a quiet man named Sunday, was trying his best to navigate the narrow spaces between the yellow Danfo buses, but there was nowhere to go. Ahead of them, two police Hilux trucks with sirens blaring were trying to force a path open, but the bridge was choked, too choked. Solomon sighed, looking out of his tinted window. He hated being still. To Solomon, time was not just money. Time was a god that he worshipped. He looked at the dashboard clock. He was supposed to be at a dinner with the governor in 40 minutes. And he was currently stuck somewhere between Oworonshoki and Adeniji. He reached for his bottle of expensive sparkling water, taking a sip while watching the chaos outside. On the pedestrian walkway and between the rows of cars, the hawkers were out in full force. It was a sea of people carrying heavy loads on their heads. Gala, plantain chips, sachet water. Solomon usually didn't look at them. To him, they were just background noise in the symphony of his success. He had convinced himself long ago that people stayed poor because they didn't work hard enough. He had deleted his own humble beginnings from his memory, acting as if he had been born with a silver spoon. Even though he knew the truth. He knew that 20 years ago, he was just like those boys on the bridge, running after cars and praying for 5 naira tip. But as he turned his head to adjust his neck pillow, something caught his eye. A woman was standing by the concrete railing, holding a large white bucket of sachet water, what we call pure water in Lagos. She looked exhausted. Her wrapper was faded. Her slippers were worn out, down to the soles. But it wasn't the woman that made Solomon's heart skip a beat. It was the 2 little boys standing on the either side of her. They couldn't have been more than 7 years old. They were wearing school uniform that had seen better days. The collars were dirty and the white shirts had turned a dull shade of yellow from being washed in hard water too many times. But their faces, Solomon felt a cold chill run down his spine that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. He leaned closer to the glass, his eyes widening. Those boys don't just look like him. They were his carbon copy. They had the same wide forehead, the same shape of nose, and the same distinctive gap in their front teeth that Solomon had spent millions of naira to fix with dental veneers in London. Even the way the smaller one stood with his left hand tucked into his pocket was a habit Solomon had struggled to break since childhood. "Sunday," Solomon whispered, his voice cracking. "Look at that woman by the railing, the one with the twins." Sunday glanced through the side mirror. Oga, those Oka people, they are everywhere. They are very dangerous, sir. Some of them are informants for kidnappers. Please, don't roll down the glass." But Solomon wasn't listening. His heart was drumming against his rib like a trapped bird. The woman turned her head to wipe the sweat from her brow with the edge of her wrapper, and that was when Solomon saw her face clearly. The bottle of water in his hands slit, spilling cold liquid all over his expensive Italian suit, but he didn't even flinch. It was fate. It was his fate. The same girl who had shared her last plate of gari with him when he was living in Face Me I Face You room in Mushin. The girl who had cried tears of joy when he got his first small contract to renovate a primary school, thinking that their lives were finally about to change. His mind raced back to that night 8 years ago. He had just received the down payment for his first Millionaire project. He felt like a king. But instead of going home to celebrate with Faith, he had listened to the voices of his new friends, who told him that a man of his status cannot be seen with a woman who didn't know how to carry herself in high society. What a pity. They told him he needed a woman who could speak phonetics and host diplomats, not a girl who still cooked with a kerosene stove. So Solomon did the most cowardly thing a man could do. He didn't even break up with her face to face. He packed his few belongings while she was still at the market that day. He changed his phone number and moved to a part of Lagos where he knew she would never find him. He had heard rumors later that she was looking for him, that she was pregnant, but he had dismissed them as lies meant to trap his new wealth. He told himself she would find someone else. He told himself he was doing her a favor by letting her go. Now, 8 years later, the favor was staring at him in the face. Faith looked like she had aged 20 years in the last 8 years. Her skin was darkened by the Lagos sun, and the vibrant, laughing girl he once loved was replaced by a woman who looked like she was carrying the weight of the entire world on her head. And the boys, they were currently weaving through the cars, holding up sachets of water, begging people to buy the pure water. One of the boys approached a downfall bus, just 2 cars ahead of Solomon's Range Rover. He saw the conductor back at the boy, pushing his hand away so roughly that the child stumbled. Solomon felt a surge of rage he couldn't explain. That was his son. He knew it in his mind. He knew it because when he looked at those boys, he saw the version of himself that he had tried so hard to kill. He saw the innocence that poverty tries to steal. He looked at his own hands, clean, manicured, and adorned with rings. And then he looked at Faith's hands, which were rough from carrying heavy buckets. The guilt hit him like a physical blow to the stomach. He had billions in the bank. He had houses in London, Dubai, and Atlanta. He had foundations that gave scholarship to children he didn't even know, just for the sake of public relations and tax breaks. And yet, here was his own blood, selling water for 20 naira on the 3rd Mainland bridge. Oga, the traffic is moving small, Sunday said, putting the car in gear as the lines of vehicles crawled forward a few inches. Stop the car, Sunday, Solomon commanded. Sir, here, it's not safe. Oh. The police escort will be confused. Sunday replied, looking worried. I said stop the car, Solomon shouted, his voice echoing in the cabin. Sunday slammed on the brakes. Between them, the bodyguard and the police escort that were following Solomon slowed down. The officers jumped out with their weapon, thinking there was an assassination attempt on the billionaire, Mr. Solomon. The drivers of the other cars started honking their horns. But Solomon didn't care. He pushed the door open. The hair of Lagos eating him like a wall. He stepped out with his polished-looking shoe. He was looking out of place in the dirt. Across the gap, Faith was busy collecting change from a driver. She hadn't seen him yet. She was focused on her business, her eyes scanning the horizon for the next customer. One of the twins, the one who looked exactly like Solomon, ran back to her, clutching a few crumpled notes. He was smiling, proud of the little money he had made. Solomon felt his leg trembling. He wanted to run to them, but he was frozen. How do you approach a woman you abandoned in the dark after you have spent 8 years living in the light? How do you tell 2 children that the man they see on the billboards every morning is the father who let them go hungry? Faith, he tried to scream, but the noise of the bridge swallowed his voice. He started walking towards them. pushing past a man selling phone chargers. His security detail was now running towards him, shouting, Sir, please get back in the vehicle. It's not secure. You are a celebrity. Faith heard the commotion. She turned her head, squinting against the sun to see why a big man in a suit was walking towards her in the middle of traffic. As Solomon gets closer, the distance between them shrinking to a few meters, the expression on Faith's face shifted. First, it was confusion. Then it was recognition. And finally, it was a look of such pure, unadulterated pain that Solomon almost fell to his knees. She didn't drop her basin. She didn't scream. She just stood there, her eyes locking onto his, as the two boys sensed the tension and moved closer to their mother, grabbing her wrapper for protection. The third mainland bridge was roaring with life all around them. Thousands of people moving, shouting and struggling. But for Solomon and Faith, the world had gone completely silent. He was looking at his past, his present, and the biggest mistake of his life, all standing in the shadow of a Lagos sunset. The silence between them was broken by the harsh reality of Lagos. A motorcycle rider swerved between the cars, shouting at Solomon to get out of the way. But Solomon did not move. He couldn't. He was staring at Faith. And for the first time in his life, his money felt like useless paper. The woman before him wasn't just an ex-girlfriend. She was a mirror reflecting the man he had become, a man who had traded his soul for a seat at the table of the elites. Faith's eyes were filled with a mixture of shock and a deep, burning resentment that made Solomon want to shrink. She looked at his crisp white shirt, his gold cufflinks, and then she looked down at her sons who were staring at this strange rich man with wide, curious eyes. Solomon, she whispered. Her voice was thin, cracked from hours of shouting for customers in the Lagos sun. She didn't call him chief or chairman like everybody did. She called him the name of the man who used to hold her hand in the bus on the way to church. Faith, I didn't know, Solomon stammered. It was a lie, and they both knew it. He had known deep down that she was out there somewhere, but he had chosen the comfort of his ignorance. One of the boys, the one who had the same gap in the seat, pulled on Faith's wrapper. Mommy, who is this man? Is he the one who wants to buy all the water? The innocence in the boy's voice was like a dagger to Solomon's heart. He looked at the boy, his son, and saw the hunger in his eyes, the kind of hunger that a child learns to live with until it becomes a part of his personality. Solomon reached out a hand, wanting to touch the boy's head, but Faith stepped back sharply. The movement was instinctive, a mother protecting her young from a predator. Don't touch them, Solomon, she said, her voice gaining strength. The shock was wearing off, replaced by a cold, hard hunger. Don't you dare come near them. By now, the scene was attracting a lot of attention. People were leaning out of their car window, wondering why a billionaire was standing in the middle of the bridge, talking to a pure water seller. His security team had caught up to him, forming a circle around him, their faces turned as they tried to push the crowd back. Sir, we really need to move, the lead officer whispered urgently. People are starting to record with their phones. This will be on the blogs in 10 minutes. I don't care about the blogs, Solomon shouted, turning on his own men. Get back to the car, all of you. Then he turned back to Faith. The traffic was starting to growing forward again. The cars were moving along. If he didn't do something now, the flow of Lagos would sweep her away again. And he knew he might never find her in a city of more than 20 million people again. Faith, please look at me, Solomon pleaded, his voice dropping to a desperate whisper. Look at the boys. They are mine, aren't they? Tell me the truth. Faith let out a dry, bitter laugh that sounded like a sandpaper. Yours? Now you want them to be yours. When I was evicted from that room in Mushin 3 months after you disappeared, were they yours then? When I was sleeping on the floor of my sister's kitchen, vomiting every morning because I couldn't afford a scan, were they yours then? Solomon, you left us. You didn't just leave me. You left these children before they even took their first breath. I made a mistake, Faith. A terrible mistake. Solomon said, stepping closer, ignoring the smell and the heat of the bridge. I was young. I was foolish. I let people get into my head. I thought I needed to be someone else to succeed. And you succeed, didn't you? Faith said, gesturing with her free hand towards his fleet of cars and the armed men guarding him. You're a big man now. You have everything. So why are you bothering us? We are just hawkers. We don't belong in your world. They are my sons, Faith, David, and he stopped, realizing he didn't even know their names. Their names are Samuel and Emmanuel, Faith said, her voice trembling now. And they don't know who you are. To them, their father is a man who died a long time ago. I told you that because it was easier than telling them their father was a man who preferred money over his own blood. Please, Solomon, the traffic is moving. Just go back to your life and let us be. She turned to walk away, calling the boys to follow her. But Solomon wasn't going to let her disappear. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a thick wad of thousand naira notes, the change he kept for tips. He tried to hand it to her, but Faith looked at the money as if it was poison. You think you can just pay for the last 8 years? She is. You think this money will fix the fact that they never celebrated a birthday? That they haven't been in school for 2 terms because I couldn't pay the balance? Take your money, Solomon. Keep it for your next mansion. She began to walk away, weaving through the cars with the grace of someone who had spent years navigating the chaos of the bridge. Solomon stood there paralyzed. The cars behind his Range Rover were honking frantically now, a symphony of frustration. His driver, Sunday, was out of the car looking terrified. Oga, please, the police are saying we are blocking the whole bridge. Solomon looked at the money in his hand, and then at the retreating figure of the only woman who had ever truly loved him for who he was. Not for what he had. He realized that if he let her go now, he would be a poor man for the rest of his life, no matter how many billions were in his account. He made a split-second decision. He didn't go back to his car. Instead, he started following her. Faith, wait, he shouted, running past the yellow bus. He caught up to her near a broken-down trunk. He grabbed her hand gently, and this time, he didn't let go. I am not giving you this money because I think it fixes anything. I am giving you my word. I am not leaving this bridge without you. If you walk, I walk. If you stay here and sell water, I will stand here with you. Faith stood and looked at him. She saw the sweat dripping down his expensive suit. She saw that he didn't care about his polished shoe or the people filming him. For a moment, she saw the old Solomon, the one who used to dream of a better life while they sat on a wooden bench eating roasted corn. You are crazy, she whispered. You will lose everything. Your reputation, your business. Look at you. People are filming. I've already lost everything that matters, Solomon said, his voice thick with emotion. He looked at the boys who were watching him with wide eyes. Emmanuel, the one who looked just like him, stepped forward and touched the fabric of Solomon's suit. Mommy, why is the rich man crying? The boy said. Solomon hadn't even realized he was weeping. The tears were carving tracks through the dust on his face. He knelt down on the hot, dirty ground of the third mainland bridge, not caring about his trouser. He was at eye level for his sons for the first time. I'm crying because I found something I thought was lost forever, Solomon told the boy. Faith stood there, a basin of water still balanced on her head, looking down at the billionaire on his knees. The traffic was finally starting to break, the cars speeding up as the traffic cleared. His security men and police were hovering nearby, unsure of what to do. The sun was beginning to dip below the horizon, painting the Lagos lagoon in shade of orange and purple. It was a beautiful sight, but the beauty was sad compared to the raw human drama of Solomon and Faith happening on the walkway. Faith, please, Solomon said, looking up at her. Just give me 1 hour. Let me take you and the boys off this bridge. Not to my house, not to a hotel, just somewhere we can sit and talk. If after that you want me to leave, I swear on my mother's grave, I will disappear and never bother you again. But I will make sure these boys never have to sell a single sachet of water again for the rest of their lives. Please, Faith. Faith looked at her sons, then back at Solomon. She looked at the thousands of cars passing by, people going home to their families, to their dinner, to their lives. She looked down at her own hard hands. She was tired. She was so tired of fighting the city of Lagos every single day just to survive. The bucket, she said quietly. I can't just throw it away. I paid for this water on credit. Solomon stood up, a small sad smile on his face. He turned to one of his uniformed security men. You, take this basin. Give the woman 50,000 naira for the water and the container now. The guard looked confused, but did as he was told. He took the basin from Faith's hand and handed her the cash. Faith held the money like she didn't know what it was. Solomon reached out his hand to her and then his other hand to the boys. Let's go, Solomon said. As they walked towards the waiting SUV, the people in the passing cars started to cheer. Some were shouting, Oga, well done, while others were still recording. But Solomon did not see them. He only felt the small, warm hand of Emmanuel sliding into his own. The boy's hand was rough, just like his mother's, and it gripped Solomon's finger with a trust that Solomon knew he didn't yet deserve. They reached the car, and Sunday opened the door. Faith hesitated, looking at the luxurious interior. She started using her hand to wipe imaginary dust from her clothes. It's okay, Solomon said softly. It's just a car. It's not home. But we are going to find a home, I promise. As the door closed, shielding them from the noise and the heat of Lagos, Solomon felt the weight of the last 8 years finally beginning to shift. But as the car started to move, he saw Faith's face in the dim light of the cabin. Faith wasn't smiling. She was looking out the window at the bridge they were leaving behind. And Solomon realized that bringing them into his car was the easy part. The hard part was going to be answering for the silence he had kept while his sons were growing up in the shadow of his success. The interior of the Range Rover was silent. It was saved for the low hum of the air conditioning. Samuel and Emmanuel sat pressed against the window, their eyes wide as they watched the Lagos skyline move past them. For them, this wasn't just a car ride. It was a journey into a different planet. They touched the soft carpets with their bare toes, whispering to each other in excitement. But between Solomon and Faith, the air was thick with things left unsaid. Solomon kept glancing at Faith, wanting to reach out, but her body language was like a locked door. She sat stiffly, her hands clutching her faded wrapper, looking like she was ready to jump out of the car at the next traffic light. Sunday, take us to the apartment in Ikoyi, the guest wing, Solomon said quietly. No, Faith interrupted, her voice sharp. Take us to Abalende. That is where we live. Oh, we are not going to any luxury apartment where we feel like a prisoner or a servant. Solomon looked at her, his heart aching. Faith, it's almost 8 o'clock, Faith. The boys are tired. They haven't eaten. Just one night where you don't have to worry about the roof leaking or the heat, please. For them. Faith looked at her sons. Emmanuel was already nodding off, his hand leaning against the expensive door panel. Samuel was rubbing his stomach. She closed her eyes and let out a long, raged breath. Fine, but just for tonight, Solomon. Don't think this means I have forgiven you. A lion does not become a lamb just because you gave it a golden cage. When they arrived at the Ikoyi apartment, the security guards at the gate saluted, their eyes nearly popping out of their heads as they saw a dusty woman and 2 hawker boys stepping out of their boss's private vehicle. Solomon ignored them. He led his family inside. Wow, his family indeed. Through the marble foyer and into a spacious suite that was larger than the entire house Faith grew up in. He immediately ordered his private chef to prepare the best meal possible. Jollof rice, fried rice, moi moi, fresh fruit juice, and other things. As the boys sat at the dining table, They were eating with hunger that made Solomon's throat tightened. He and Faith stood on the balcony overlooking the Lagos Lagoon. The lights of the city twinkled in the distance. How did it come to this fate? Solomon asked, staring into the dark water. I remember one time I sent money back to that old neighborhood. I asked about you. You asked the wrong people, Solomon. Faith replied. Her voice was cold. You asked the people who wanted to stay in your favor. The ones who knew you wanted to hear that I was doing fine so you could sleep better at night. Nobody told you that my father died 2 weeks after you left. Nobody told you I lost my job at the pharmacy because I was too sick from pregnancy to show up. I was alone. I called your brother's number 1,000 times, and every time a recorded voice told me it didn't exist. I even called your number countless times. I changed it because creditors were chasing me, Solomon said, though it felt like a pathetic excuse to even his own ears. I thought I was starting over, Solomon said. You started over by erasing me? Faith said, turning to him. Do you know what it's like to see your face every day on the television? To see you donating millions to charities on the news while I am boiling stones in a pot just to trick these boys into thinking food is coming so they can fall asleep. Emmanuel asks me every morning why his father doesn't love him. I told him his father was a hero who died at sea. Now, he finds out his father is the man who owns the city. How do I explain that to him, Solomon? How do I tell him his father chose a bank balance over him? Solomon had no answer. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He opened his banking app and showed her the balance. A number with so many zeros, it looked fake. I have all of this, Faith. And tonight, on that bridge, I realized I have absolutely nothing. My house is empty. My life is a performance. I have spent 8 years building a monument to myself, only to realize I was building it on a graveyard of my own happiness. He stepped closer, his voice trembling. I am not asking you to love me again, Faith. I know I don't deserve that. But let me be a father. Let me give them the world. I want to put them in the best schools. I want them to know what it's like to be... I want them to never know what it feels like to be thirsty or tired again. And you, Faith, you don't have to ever carry a bucket of water again. You can have your own business, your own house, everything or anything. Faith looked at him for a long time. The anger in her eyes hadn't disappeared, but it was joined by something else. Exhaustion. She was a woman who had fought every battle alone, and for the first time, someone was offering to take the shield from her hands. If I stay, she says slowly, it is for them, not for you. You will not control me. You will not tell me how to live, and you will tell them the truth. You will tell them you left, and you will spend every day of the rest of your life earning their respect. It is not something you can buy with a checkbook, Solomon. I accept, Solomon said, a sense of relief washing over him that was greater than any business deal he had ever closed. Just then, the door of the balcony opened. Samuel and Emmanuel walked out. Their faces clean now. They are wearing oversized t-shirts the chef had found for them. They looked at the man in the suit and the woman who had been their only word. Mommy, Samuel said, looking at Solomon. Is it true? Is he the man from the pictures? Faith looked at Solomon, then at her sons. She took a deep breath. He's someone who was lost, Samuel, but he says he had found his way back. He's your father. The silence that followed was heavy. The two boys looked at Solomon, searching his face for truth. Emmanuel, the braver one, walked up to Solomon and reached out, touching the gold watch on his wrist. If you are our daddy, the boy said softly, does that mean we don't have to go back to the bridge tomorrow? Solomon dropped to his knees, pulling both boys into a tight embrace. He buried his face in their shoulder, the scent of Lagos sun still lingering in their hair. No, he cried, the tears flowing freely now. No more bridges, no more water, no more pure water, never again. Over the next few months, The billionaire of Banana Island became a legend in Lagos, but not for reason people expected. Solomon didn't hide his story. He used his platform to speak about the struggles of the people he had once ignored. He bought a beautiful house for Faith and the boys in a quiet, leafy part of the city, not to hide them, but to give them the peace they had had. He didn't marry Faith right away. They had too many wounds to heal, but they spent every Sunday together, watching the boys play football on a lawn that was forever green. Solomon still traveled to the third mainland bridge, but now, when his car got stuck in traffic, he didn't look at his watch. He didn't scream at his driver. He would roll down the window, look at the hawkers, and remember. He started a foundation that didn't just give out money, but built centers across the city where women like Faith could find dignified work and get education. He knew that he could never truly make up for the 8 years he had missed. He would never erase the memory of his sons hawking in the heat. But as he sat in his office one afternoon, looking at a framed photo of the twins in their new school, he realized that the traffic on that bridge that day had not been a curse. It had been his salvation. Lagos, in all its chaos and noise, had stopped him in his track just long enough to show him the most valuable things in life aren't found in a board room, but in the eyes of a child who finally knows he is home. The Lion of Banana Island was still a multi-billionaire, but he was finally a man. And as the sun set over the lagoon, he knew that for the first time in his life, he was exactly where he was supposed to be. If you were Faith, tell me, would you accept Solomon back? Or tell me what you are going to do. Put your thoughts in the comment section.